You're not a starving artist, you just haven't started licensing your catalog yet. Welcome to episode 4 of the series where I help you see that there is more than one way to make it in music. If you've been following the series so far, we've covered everything from limiting beliefs that could be holding you back, the 3 pillars you need to propel you forward, and how to get into freelance songwriting. Today we're going to be getting into licensing your music and creating passive income with your catalog. Of course, there are many different ways you can make money in music. We've already discussed a few of them, but one of my favorite ways has become licensing. So before we dive into how you can start licensing your own music, for the people who don't already know, let's quickly cover what it actually is. So unlike freelance songwriting, which is what we talked about in the last video, where you may be focusing more on one-time projects. Maybe you're getting a songwriting fee for creating a song for one artist and their one project, and you negotiate any extra perks later down the line during the negotiation period. But in the licensing realm, you're more so allowing someone to use your song, you retain your ownership, and you can continue to license your song to multiple different people. The most popular scenario we see music licensing in is famously TV and film. So the 2 major ways I've been taking advantage of music licensing, and you could too, is through licensing hooks online and licensing music for television and film, which we already kind of briefly talked about, but I'll go more in depth in a few minutes. So first, let's talk about licensing hooks or beats online. For those of you who may not have heard of this kind of thing before, there are platforms online that allow producers to take their beats and license them to willing participants. This is not a new concept. It has been around for a while. It's controversial to some. When I was heavily into licensing beats and hooks online, it was controversial in the music industry. Traditional producers maybe don't get it, maybe don't understand why you would want to sell your music at a lower rate. But I think that perhaps they knock it because they don't fully understand what is happening. I think they see the prices of like, oh, you can buy a beat for $25. Why would you do that? And it's because we're not selling the actual rights to the beat or to the hook for $25. You are selling a license to use the beat or the hook for $25. And typically when the customer purchases the beat or the hook from you from your storefront, you would have a license with rules and regulations and policies as to what this $25 purchase might get them. And of course, you can have multiple licenses on your storefront. So some producers or songwriters might have lower end licenses at $25, and I've seen higher end licenses from $300, $400, $500, you name it, there's probably a license at that cost. And they all just come with different usage rights. Hopefully you're still with me because I feel like I went a bit rogue. So if you want to break into the world of licensing beats or licensing hooks, I would suggest you look into those type of platforms. I always say BeatStars because that was the platform that I used, but there are plenty of others. There's Airbit, SoundClick, and a couple of others that I've heard people use. And some people don't use the platforms at all. They build their own website that allows customers to come in and purchase licenses from them. So that way you kind of eliminate the middleman. Of course, there's going to be some upfront costs involved if you choose to go the custom website route, where you would have to build your custom website and pay for all the things that come with that territory. Depending on how far you go, you may need to get into a web developer. Of course, there are AI platforms now that will build a whole website for you. Maybe that's an avenue you could go if you don't want to sign up for one of the existing platforms that kind of already have that beat licensing infrastructure in it. Yeah, the world is your oyster. I've seen it all. My storefront still exists on BeatStars and I still make money from it to this day. I just don't actively update it anymore because it's not my biggest priority. I will say if you get into beat licensing or hook licensing, it is the kind of thing that you get what you put into it. So if you put low effort into it, you're probably going to see low effort results. But if you really go into it with a strategy, and when I mean a strategy, I just mean it's competitive and And I would say the top producers on the platform are people who have really nailed down who their audience is. They're probably working in specific genres intentionally because some genres work better than others and have more of a demand than others. So you would have to sit down and do the research to really get into this world. So how did I, as a songwriter, make a platform like BeatStars that's mainly designed for producers work for me? I partnered with producers and I would license my hooks. I partnered with maybe 10 to 15 different producers across BeatStars, and we came up with our own deals. We talked to each other and negotiated what percentage of splits would go to me, what percentage of splits would go to them, whose store would the song live on, could it live on both of our pages, is it only going to live on your page. We would coordinate when we were going to post, and they would do their marketing thing and I would do my marketing thing, because as I've already mentioned, it does require a lot of effort and strategy in the marketing sense. The platform is more of like the infrastructure, it's the building that your storefront lives in, but it's not going to do all the legwork for you. The building does have a marketplace. So BeatStars, the platform, does have a marketplace. And I also want to be clear that this video is not sponsored by BeatStars. It's just that that's the platform I used. So that is where my experience lies. But I'm pretty confident most of the things that I'm saying applies to any other platform that is similar to BeatStars that I mentioned earlier. So if I keep saying BeatStars, it's because that's the platform I use, not because I'm in cahoots with them. So don't even start with me. But anywho, back to what I was saying. BeatStars is the building. You have put your storefront inside their building. Of course, there are competitors in that same building, just like a mall. So naturally, there's gonna be customers in the building shopping, and that might work to your advantage. But of course, you have to take extra steps and extra measures to get people into your storefront that may not already be shopping around in the mall. Because if you're only dependent on the people who are shopping around in the mall, you are relying on them to literally make the decision to walk into your store, and they might not be there for you, they might not be interested in you. But if you do intentional marketing, you can get the attention of the right customers who are interested in you. It sounds like a lot of work. It is a lot of work, but it is worth it because it builds passive income for you. If that wasn't clear already, licensing hooks online, licensing beats online is a form of passive income, but it does require you to do some things to jumpstart the system, and marketing is a big part of that. I did spend money monthly on ads, and at the time I was running ads on Facebook, I was running ads on YouTube. A lot of the producers I was partnering with were also running ads and probably spending significantly more than what I was spending on ads. At minimum, I know I was spending at least like $500 or $600 a month on ads, but I worked my way up to that. Of course, I wasn't spending $500 on ads when I wasn't even making $500 on BeatStars. When I first started, I was doing little amounts. Sometimes I would just do $10 here, $20 there, just to get a little something and see if it made a difference. But of course, the trajectory of my sales changed when I was spending a lot more. I also reached out and asked other producers what they were doing to see success on BeatStars. And of course, as I mentioned in one of my previous videos, I connected with the founder of BeatStars. So I was getting firsthand advice on what could work well for my licensing business. And I was applying all of the methods and strategies that were given to me. And also sometimes I would snoop around on BeatStars and find other profiles that were performing well. Any songs that were charting high in the marketplace, I would go find those producers. I would look at their profiles, look at their social media, and look at all the strategies that they were using and try to apply it to my own. I would see some people, in addition to running ads, they had an email list, so they would be emailing their customers, running promotions aligned with holidays. Because just like retail, my licensing income would skyrocket during Christmas time, Black Friday, all of the things just like normal retail. So you have to think of it like a retail store. So there's a lot of ins and outs. I don't want to go too far into strategy for BeatStars on this because, like I said, it's not my main priority anymore. I do focus mainly on TV and film licensing, which, don't worry, we're going to talk about it in a few more minutes after I stop jibber jabbering about licensing hooks and beats. I know some of you might be concerned about, is it saturated? Do people still want to buy it because of AI or whatever the reason may be? I always say you should at least try and give it a good try. Don't give it like a 5-minute try and then be like, oh, it didn't work, and you've only been doing it for like 24 hours. You need to give it like a 30 to 60 day try of like, and definitely more than 30. Like I take back 30. You need to give it like a good 60 to 90 day try. It took me months to even get to an income amount that excited me. When I first started, I think my first month I only made like $20 or $50 or something. So you do have to keep going and try not to get discouraged, and make sure you're doing everything in your power to get customers to your storefront. Don't just rely on making a profile and thinking people are just gonna find you. There is more to it than that, and I guarantee you, if you are someone who's ever purchased a beat or a beat with hook from a producer or a songwriter, it most likely just wasn't because you stumbled upon them. They probably did work to get you there. Advertising, sending an email, posting on social media, whatever it may be, effort was put in for you to figure out who they are. Something else I wanted to get into, because it's such a big topic, licensing hooks and beats, that I feel like I'm all over the place because there's just so much to share. So I'm kind of just going off the top of my head. Feel free to comment, and I might make some short form videos to answer any additional questions if I wasn't clear on something. But selling beats online, at least in the height of my career of selling beats and hooks online, YouTube was a big part of it, and I believe it still is, because I still see the beat videos popping up on my own feed. So do some research into that. Look at the pipeline of posting a beat video on a YouTube channel, looking in the description and seeing the link that points back to the beat store. Regardless of if it's BeatStars, SoundClick, a custom website, the strategy that I've seen a lot of people using is posting the beats or the hooks, whatever, onto YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, some kind of social media platform. But I believe YouTube is one of the more popular ones because of the searching mechanisms in the algorithms and the way it's set up. It's easier to find a beat in a specific genre in the style of a particular artist. So that's another thing you're gonna have to get into, research, and learn how to do properly, which is finding the right keywords so that people can find you. If someone is specifically looking for a hip hop beat in the style of J. Cole, and you're a producer who makes those kinds of things, or you made a hook in the style that J. Cole would typically rap on, this is how you get the right people to find you, and this is how you start to brand your store based on the sound that you provide. Get into the research, figure out if you are willing to do the work and commit to this kind of business, because everything we've covered in this series are all things that are going to require a lot of effort. And so it's worth you sitting down and looking at all of the pieces and figuring out which piece we've discussed that you're willing to go in on and start building that income. So whether it's the freelance stuff or licensing, and they're all lucrative spaces, but they require you to put your thinking caps on and execute the plan. Before we move on to sync licensing, I do just want to reiterate, if you decide to start licensing your beats and hooks, just review your actual license agreements. A lot of these platforms have pre-made licenses, but still read them and see if the policies are things you agree with, if that's what you would want to happen if somebody purchased a license from you. Are these the rights you want to grant them? And something else I love about this particular model is the more artists that purchase licenses to use your music, as they start releasing their own versions of the song, if you've put in your license that they also have to give you a split of their royalties, then you're creating even more income streams based on that. And then sometimes those artists who end up purchasing a license from you end up getting their own music placed on TV or getting other opportunities that might bring you unforeseen income. So it's a really interesting space. If you're a songwriter and you want to get into hook licensing and you don't know how to produce your own beats, you can do what I did, partner with other producers. If you have a friend or someone that you work with already, see if they're down to just open up a store with you. You guys can create a brand name and, go to town, you and that person just making beats and hooks. The producer gets 50%, you get 50%, and at least on BeatStars, it does an automatic split. So if a payment for $20 comes in, the producer will get $10 and you will get $10. So that's a really convenient way to do it. Of course, if you are a songwriter who already knows how to produce, you are in the best possible position because you can just take 100% of the sales and live your best life. And you can do some experimentation. Maybe your beats are selling better than your hooks, or maybe your hooks are outselling your beats and you need to just focus more on that. There's so many things that you can do. And if you don't make beats and you don't know anyone who makes beats and you want to license your hooks, then you are going to have to start start networking. And you can network online. You don't have to go in person if you don't want to, but search these beat licensing platforms for producers that align with the sound you're going for and shoot your shot. Don't just slide in their DMs and say something stupid like, what's up, wanna collab? Those are the stupidest messages. Don't do it. They're not gonna answer you. Send an actual real pitch kind of message for yourself. Offer value to them. Say the plan. Maybe have some examples ready of your music, and you better sound good. Otherwise, what are you doing? Also, pay attention to the producer's profiles. Do they already have hooks on their profiles? Maybe they're gonna be willing to give you a shot. And if they don't, you might have to just sharpen the pitch, you know? Maybe just say, hey, are you willing to try 3 to 5 hooks and see what happens? Just come up with something that is going to be exciting for them to feel like they want to try it with you. Another thing you might want to think about is maybe don't target the tippity top selling producers right away. Build yourself up and then maybe try those people. Not to say don't shoot your shot, but like shoot your shot a couple times. You never know. You might contact one of the top selling producers and they might be like, absolutely, yes, let's do it. But it could be cool to find people who are coming up and maybe their profiles haven't blown up yet, and you guys can build together. You can come up with a marketing strategy together and just really grow. Of course, okay, so now that I've jabbered on and on and on about hook and beat licensing, let's move into sync licensing, which is probably a way more popular avenue to create extra income for artists and songwriters and producers. You probably already know a lot of the things that I'm gonna talk about today. I would say with hook licensing and beat licensing, your core audience, it's gonna be more indie artists, rappers. Sometimes labels will come to you and ask you about a song that you got up on your beat store, or maybe they found on YouTube. It's happened in the past for me where maybe we released a hook and then a couple days later a label has asked if they could use it for one of their artists, and so we take it down for them and go through the whole process with them. So your audience with hook licensing and sync licensing is going to be different. In sync licensing, you're going to want to target music libraries, music supervisors, trailer houses, ad agencies, production companies, but anybody whose business it is to place music into visual or digital media. That's going to be your target audience, your customer, your client. That's who you want to have eyeballs on your music for sync licensing. Of course, there are entities that exist that help you get your music into those places, like music libraries, a sync rep, a publisher, people who are already well connected with the networks and productions and know the goings-ons of what they might need for a particular project. And this is another space that is going to require effort. This is where the effort goes into you doing the research to find the people who get your music to where it needs to go. One music supervisor, just because you saw them in the credits of whatever movie, might not be the right music supervisor for your music if they don't work on the kind of projects that cater to the kind of music that you have to offer. And sometimes music supervisors have their own rules and policies about how they want to receive music, and sometimes they don't want to deal directly with an artist. So that's why you need some kind of representation. And this is the homework you need to do, is according to the genre of music that you're in, what kind of productions need your music, who's working on those projects, who works with the music supervisors on those projects. Sometimes you can see them in the credits, like it'll say this music was given to us courtesy of, insert the publisher name, insert the music library name. Those are gonna be the people who you want to get on their radar because they work with the music supervisors that you like. You can try to shoot your shot to music supervisors, but do your research. Some music supervisors don't want to be contacted in that way. They'd rather you just, like I already said, go through your representation. That's why if I were starting over in sync licensing, I would spend a good amount of time researching who needs to have my catalog in their hands to be able to get myself on the projects that I want to be a part of. And then once you figured out, how do you get into it? So different music libraries might have different ways of becoming a part of their catalog. They might have an application. They might have a form you need to fill out. Maybe it's just an email you need to send. You have to find that out. There are a ton of creators on YouTube and Instagram that have pre-made lists of music libraries and sync reps and all the places. So if you're not in the mood to do the research, maybe you can benefit from the research that's already been done by these other creators. But I do recommend just spend some time at a coffee shop once a week. If you have a Saturday open, go to a coffee shop, lock in on your computer and just start doing research. Check IMDb, see what music supervisors are working on what, check what music libraries they work with. Some music supervisors have their own music libraries. See if you can be a part of that. And you might have to learn a little bit of sales and pitching, and it all goes back to marketing yourself. There's a book I've been reading. I think I'm gonna do a full video on it because it's been changing my life, but I've been reading this book, Sponsor Magnet. I started reading it for content creation because this is the realm I've been focusing on in addition to sync licensing. The two big focuses for my business currently is content creation and obviously my sync licensing business, Love Pulse. And so I've been trying to learn as much as I can about sales and pitching. And so I started reading Sponsor Magnet, and I will say, even though it is dedicated to content creation, I feel like a lot of the lessons are getting my wheels turning in my career in general. But I don't want to go too far into it because I'm gonna make a whole video on it, but I just recommend get the book and then apply the lessons to not just reaching out to brands, because that's what this book is about. It's about reaching out to brands and pitching yourself to have sponsors, literally, but using it for stuff like this. Like, how would you break down the door? That's aggressive. Don't break down anyone's doors, but how would you get into the room of whoever you need to get in touch with to get your music? How do you stand out? How do you get on their radar? How often do you reach out? Do you follow up? What's your plan? I feel like books like this give us a good starting place, and I think musicians need to put themselves in this place, because at the end of the day, we as freelancers, we are entrepreneurs. You need to know how to pitch yourself. This is our versions of job applications, right? Like creating new opportunities for yourself and networking through the internet with people you've never met before. You need to make sure you are coming correct, and this could be how you get into those rooms for sync licensing. It's sales, it's pitching. An artist hired me to write a song with them. I think I did a hook or something like that for them. And then I moved on with my life. And maybe like a year or so later, that artist got accepted into a music library. I thought the music library was really cool. And so when they reached out to me to clear the music for whatever they were working on, I followed up and ended up getting myself into the music library. So then they took more songs from my own catalog, not just the one song I did on Sound Better. So you have to be thinking creatively and leveraging your opportunities however you can. I've gotten way off topic, but my main point that I was trying to make was basically that is the front load of work. Is you need to find the people who want your music, and that's going to be the hardest part of sync licensing. Once you're in the right space, they do the rest, okay? They're going to get your music placed, then you just keep making more music and finding more opportunities for yourself. You just keep repeating the cycle, and as your music starts to get placed on TV, each scenario is different. You might have some scenarios where it's airing on TV and you don't get any kind of fee up front. They just take your song, they put it on air, but you get royalties in the back end. And this is where I start to fall in love with sync licensing, because the more placements you have, the more performance royalties you get. And that is another element of passive income, which is my favorite kind of income. It comes in on a rainy day, okay? When you're least expecting it, it's a wonderful world when it's working in your favor, because it's not an easy world to be in. And then there are some projects you may work on that offer upfront fees in addition to the performance royalties. That is wonderful. We love that. So you might get a message from your music library or your sync rep or directly from a music supervisor or whatever saying, hey, we want to use this song on this episode of whatever, or on this movie. And it could be attorneys. It could be, I don't know your life. But when these opportunities come in, you're going to know that you're getting the upfront fee, and you'll work that out. You'll talk to your own attorney if you need to, and you get your fee up front. And then when the show or the movie or whatever airs, you get your performance royalties on the back end. I'm trying to see if there's anything else I should share about sync licensing that I haven't already, because I have a full video on sync licensing that I will link here and in the description box for you to watch further. But I think that's the strategy, is finding the people who need you and then getting yourself on the radar. Read this book or read a book on just marketing and pitching yourself, so that you can give yourself a bigger probability of getting a yes and getting yourself through the door. And of course, before you start pitching or applying or doing anything, even though I've said it 1,000 times, you must have good music and maybe have some good photos on top of that. Have a nice bio. A lot of you have been reaching out and asking, like, how do I get noticed? How do I get customers? These are the things, all of these elements we've been talking about, using platforms like BeatStars to license your music, but then paying paying for ads to draw attention to yourself, that's all gonna add to people wanting to work with you and your credibility and all that kind of stuff. And then of course, if you're also passively getting music placed on television and somebody Shazams it and sees your name, they're probably gonna find you on Instagram. They're gonna reach out on whatever profile you have available for them to reach out to, which is another reason why I say it's so important for you to be visible and discoverable online in a professional way. If you do start getting TV placements or you start running ads, you don't want someone to come across your Instagram and all it is like pictures of like you picking your nose. I don't know what you do. These are all the things. I forgot to mention, I also have a video where I spoke directly with a music supervisor who works on a ton of different shows, and he talked about everything that he's looking for, all the things he likes and wants and doesn't want. So I will also drop that in the description box for your viewing pleasure. So now you have two different ways that you can approach licensing your music. And I do want to reiterate, this isn't the only ways you can license music. I'm sure there are more ways. These are just the two biggest ways I've licensed music and seen a good return on my time. And that's licensing hooks with beats and licensing my music on TV and film and commercials and that kind of thing. And although they are two different worlds, they are built with the same principle in mind, and that is creating something one time and getting paid multiple times. If you haven't already watched the previous episodes of You're Not a Starving Artist, I highly suggest you catch up because the next episode is on the way. In our next video, we're gonna keep building on everything we've learned so far with this video here.